Hi, welcome back to Recipe to Revenue. I'm your host, Leah Messina. On today's episode, we're going to dive into the story of Jared Drinkwater and his brand, Low and Slow Snack. Jared has a compelling journey from being a seasoned marketing executive for big companies like Frito-Lay and Yum Brands, just to name a few. But the entrepreneurial bug called and he answered and has founded Low and Slow Snack as a way to bring a smoked snack to the market. Jared's going to share with us some of the highlights, the ups and downs that he has met during this entrepreneurial adventure, and some of the big breakthroughs that have really helped their company scale, including their manufacturing process. There's a lot of strategic decisions that have gone into making Low and Slow successful up to this point, and many more to come. But Jared's going to share some of his insights and what it has taken to build a brand with this distinctive narrative and the nuances of making the entrepreneurial leap. He's going to share also his personal recipe to revenue and what has made them successful in this very competitive food market. So looking forward to hearing what Jared has to say. Hello, welcome back to Recipe to Revenue. I am so excited to be here today with Jared Drinkwater of Low and Slow Snacks. Jared has such an amazing background in corporate marketing for some of the biggest brands out there and the biggest CPG companies, and has gotten the entrepreneurial bug, and excited for him to share his story with us today. Jared, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Leah.
So let's just kind of start at the beginning. Tell us the story of how you got Low and Slow started, and then let's dig back into some your CPG world beyond that in a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So it started kind of like a lot of ideas start at dinner with a buddy, maybe a couple drinks. And for some reason, we just got onto the topic of snacks. I mean, I have a background at Frito-Lay. My co-founder runs a marketing company. And we started talking about kind of authentic barbecue and barbecue snacks. And the insight was, why does every barbecue snack all revolve around barbecue sauce seasoning? You probably think I'm the biggest loser that's my dinner conversation, but that's how the company was
appropriate.
Born. And so I was like living in Texas for 21 years. You kind of grow up around barbecue.
Oh, yeah.
And I love to smoke stuff. And I was like, that's the least important part of an authentic barbecue experience, the sauce. It's all about the wood and the smoke and the patience and the craft that goes into making authentic Texas barbecue, really barbecue anywhere. And so I went home from dinner. I threw a bag of chips in my smoker in the backyard and served a bag to my family. They loved it. Ended up taking a bag down the street to my now business partner, Mike. Mike ran global R&D at Frito-Lay for 22 years, engineer by trade, has been around food and innovation really his whole career. And he opened up a bag and he smelled the smoke and he was like, man, I tried to nail aroma at Frito-Lay for 15 plus years, couldn't do it. This is really cool. Nice. I'm interested in helping you get it off the ground. And so it took us the better part of about 2 years on the side while I had a full-time job. And so he was retired, but really took us a couple of years to figure out how to crack the code on a manufacturing process to smoke chips at scale. Once we did that, it was kind of off to the races. We found a co-packer that was crazy enough to let us build a smoke room on his land and raise some money and quit my job. And the rest is history. So that's like a 2-minute overview from idea to actually making the first ever smoked snack food.
Well, impressive story arc already. So lots to get into there. So let's kind of start back with that first initial idea that you had with your smoker in your backyard there. Did you go and buy some chips off the shelf and say, okay, I'm going to experiment and smoke these? Or were you there literally cutting potatoes and making your own chips to start?
Yeah, no, it was literally, we went to a Walmart and we bought $500 worth of stuff and rented a commercial smoke house. So it was basically like a commercial smoke room. We were there all day. And I'll never forget it. We were flying home and we smelled so bad. Well, actually good if you like barbecue smoke.
Yeah,
But
depending on
we were
what you think.
extremely smoky that no one wanted to sit next to us at the airport.
How
So
funny.
we smoked every salty snack on the planet after my proof of concept in my backyard. And really, it kind of was an awakening for us. I mean, no one had ever done this before, which I thought was crazy. But now I realize no one's ever done it because it's really hard to do. The process is a lot more complicated than just throwing a bag of chips in my smoker. We can't smoke millions of pounds back there. So there's a lot of science to it. We're still learning every time we cook. We burn real wood. So there's all kinds of different things that impact consistency, which is so important when you've got a food brand. And so, yeah, it started basically by smoking everything, and everything kind of takes smoke well. It's all delicious. And so that's kind of how the tinkering began, was in my backyard, and then one day in a commercial smoke room. And then the rest was all playing around in Mike's backyard in Plano, Texas, just trying to figure out a way to do it at scale.
Yeah. What were, some of the highlights of things that you smoked that you were pleasantly surprised?
Wow. The one thing that didn't smoke, kind of start backwards, right, the first way, were pretzels. And that's because the smoke needs to have some kind of porous surface to stick itself onto. And so we started with kind of like pretzel rods, pretzel hearts, and that didn't work. And then finally cracked the code when we smoked pretzel pieces, which is an innovation for down the road. I think the reason, and we can talk about kind of where we started in the products and where we are today, but really seeing that our cheese puff products are the best received in market. Probably a few different reasons for that, but one of which that they really take the smoke well.
Yeah, nice and porous, those puffs, right?
Exactly. They're like sponges. And so the trick is that you don't want to over smoke it because then it tastes bitter. You don't want to under smoke it because then you lose the unique point of difference that the product has over everything else. So it really took us a long time to figure out how to thread the needle there.
Yeah, really interesting. So a lot of taste testing in the process too.
Yeah, it's funny. And I don't know if other CPG founders are the same way, but I mean, I've eaten so much of our product in the plants, in the backyard, that it is tough for me to just like eat them mindless munching.
Right.
But yes, I have eaten a lot of salty snacks over the past 4 years getting this company off the ground, and a lot of barbecue, because candidly, we're building a barbecue brand first, salty snack brand second. And so I get all my inspiration for flavors and our product development from stuff that I see within the barbecue community. And that's been a lot of fun for me building this brand, is just getting to know pit masters in Texas and across the country, and trying to infuse basically everything they do with meat, except do it with snacks.
Awesome. So are you going to all these big barbecue competitions now in Nashville and Texas? And I mean, there's so many different types of barbecue in different regions of the country too.
There are. I mean, I think there are certainly regional flavor profiles. You think about more vinegary in the Carolinas, different wood types. Texas uses oak, Kansas and Missouri use hickory. But I think that the one common denominator is that any real barbecue is actually smoked. And so I'm trying to focus more on flavors that have broad appeal, not regional flavors yet, and really just kind of do everything with the real wood, real smoke mentality. I have been to a lot of barbecue festivals, and we're starting to get invited to more, which is kind of cool as the brand grows. But I've been to Memphis in May. I've been to the American Royal in Kansas City. I've been to a bunch of different barbecue festivals across Texas. And I will tell you that the barbecue community is one of the kindest, most supportive groups of people I have ever been around. And with just how much crazy stuff is going on in the world, it is so refreshing to just be around people who all they do is care about barbecue and family. And it's just been a ton of fun and a great space to grow a new brand.
Oh, I love hearing that. And I've heard that from a couple of different segments within, the food and beverage world. I heard it from the whiskey industry, is very tight knit, and now here the barbecue industry, which is so great. It is something that unites people. It is a communal sport in a way, right? Barbecue. So that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So what was some of the reactions when you're bringing your product to this, more traditional barbecue environment where, they're there for the meats, and here you are with your snack product? What was their reaction?
So, we're not trying to be a brisket replacement. We're a snack food, and overwhelmingly the reception that we've gotten within the barbecue community has been extremely positive. I think that owning a barbecue joint is probably one of the hardest things you could do. Not only just figuring out the economics, I mean, protein and brisket's really expensive right now, but just in terms of operating and menu and cooking a brisket is really hard. I mean, these guys are pit masters and pros for a reason because they can get it right every time. I'm really good at smoking cheese puffs, but I still have issues smoking briskets from time to time. And I try to smoke a lot of stuff in my free time, but they all appreciated the fact that we actually burned real wood and they could smell it and taste it in the experience. And I think the fact that we're going about it the right way, and it's almost like paying respect to pitmasters, that we're slowly becoming like the unofficial snack of pitmasters. Because when you think about it, when you're cooking a brisket, I mean, you could be doing it 18 hours. And so you're going to eat stuff while you're cooking brisket. What better snack to have than a smoked cheese puff when you're by the pit?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And even while you're eating the brisket, you're having that crunchiness next to that meat, like it's such a complimentary mouthfeel for both of them. So I wanted to kind of go back a little bit to your, prior experience, and I want you to share how that has helped you launch this new company. You've had such deep experience for some of the biggest companies in the world in this space. So what are some of the lessons that you've brought forward?
It's interesting. Just taught a marketing class at SMU here in Dallas and was asked the same question. And I have a very different perspective on being an entrepreneur than I think a lot of people do. You often hear the best time to start a company is when you're young, you don't have family, you don't have commitments, and you can just grind. And I actually think the opposite. I think that there is no chance I would have been able to get the company where it is today without the experiences that I had working at Frito-Lay and at Pizza Hut and at Varsity Brands, which is the company I was at before I left to do this full time. Not just understanding marketing, but the connections that I made. And so many people that I used to work with at Frito-Lay went on to jobs at retailers and brokerage firms and consultancies. And just to be able to tap into the network that I built over 20 years to get this off the ground, important. Another thing, when you get the entrepreneurial itch at age 47 with 4 kids, failure is not an option. I will say probably easier financially to do it when you're younger, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be more successful. For me, I get up every day and my inspiration is to try to build something special so that my family can see it. And that has been really an incredible lesson for me. I think I've defined success in this thing based on potential outcome or exit by sales metrics, by velocity, and not by just having the guts to go do something on your own. And recently had a big birthday and my wife made me a book and everyone kind of wrote something cool in it. And the common thread was that people have thought I've already won regardless of what those outcomes are because I'm following a passion and I've always had a dream to run my own company. And so long-winded way of me saying the experience that I got over the past, call it 17 years before starting this business were essential to building this company and this brand quickly. We still have a long way to go, but I think we've made progress that a lot of emerging CPG brands would take 5, 6, 7, 10 years or maybe never to get to. And I credit that to a lot of the people that I met and learned from along the way.
Yeah, I think that is a fantastic perspective. And, I certainly have heard too, do when you're young and the risk is low, the opportunity is high, but there's really nothing that can replace the experience that you've had and the connections that you've made along the way that have expedited your process to this point. Like when you're 20 years old doing it, you have to make every single one of those connections at that point in time and build relationships. And you're able to come in and say, oh, I know who to call for that. And I know who to call for that. So congratulations on your success so far with it. It's an impressive journey.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now one thing that folks always are very highly interested in is the scaling process, especially on the manufacturing side, going from, the backyard idea to, you mentioned you had a, co-packer. So tell us how that journey had evolved and some steps that you took along.
Yeah, I think partner selection is really important. And You can probably, at the end of the day, if you've got a good idea, tons of co-packers out there, if you're going to co-manufacture and not do it yourself right away, that you could partner with that could kind of build your product. We happened to find a group of folks that not only had a ton of experience in innovative snack making, they actually come from former lives at Frito running manufacturing facilities for the company and started their own business years ago, 15, 20 years ago. But they were just great operators. But they also genuinely believed in the brand and what we were building. And they believed in it so much so that they're an equity partner in our business. And I think it's really important to pick a partner that you trust and that you can grow with. And so I would say that's kind of like lesson number one. I mean, there was so much we didn't know how to do when we built the smoke room, and just having people that have had years and years of experience put their eyes on it and come up with creative solutions. I will tell you, the manufacturing process that we thought we were going to build and the equipment that we were going to need, because it's all new, no one's ever smoked snack food before, is completely different to how we envisioned it. And it's because we had the right people in the room and the right skill sets and the right manufacturing partner. So I think that's first and foremost. The next is basically just make sure you're building something that can actually be scaled, because you don't want to get into a situation where you go get all these orders, then you can't fulfill it. And so we built not with like crazy excess capacity, but enough excess capacity with our process that we could grow into some pretty big retail accounts, which we've done. Yeah. So I will say, based on some of the conversations we have, definitely one thing that keeps me up at night is being able to keep up. So far, we're okay. But I think if you're not uncomfortable growing a brand in the CPG space, like every second of the day, you're probably not going fast enough. So, I think that those are a couple of just kind of key things that are important when you think about scaling a new brand.
Yeah. So, you had a really deep experience on the marketing side. Your partner has some engineering background, and you brought in the co-packers. So what were the other holes potentially that you didn't have the expertise that you had to bring in some other knowledge from?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're extremely bootstrapped. We've got great kind of bookkeeping, fractional support. We've got great logistics, fractional support. We'll grow into full-time roles in both of those functions as we grow. The one glaring void was, as you think about how to distribute product in our category quickly without relying on shelf resets, et cetera, direct store delivery, DSD, is really one of the only options to do that. And so I did not have a network of independent DSD distributors. So I actually hired former salesperson at Dots Pretzels, and he's got 30 plus years in the business. And he was one of the first salespeople that Dot hired to grow that brand. And for anyone who doesn't know, that's Dot. It's really cool. I actually had dinner with her this past February, and she's an amazing woman. And her husband, they built something from her kitchen that ended up selling to Hershey in 2021 for $1.2 billion. Randy was instrumental in growing that business through the network of independent DSD operators that he had. And so I'd say that was a really critical hire for me. To get him to leave Hershey and come build something special at Low and Slow was not just awesome because it gave us the ability to go from just Texas to like 17 states overnight, but just the validation point that someone that seasoned would see such potential in us and come over was a really, really cool thing. So he has been a really key part of us growing this business to where it is. And he's only been with us for a little over a year and a half, but has already done an incredible job growing our base.
That's an amazing key hire. So again, congrats on that. It's great to see such a testament of how he believes in the product and what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So you kind of just alluded to getting on shelves and how much you've scaled on the retail side of it. And I know that's pretty fast moving for you guys. So talk a little bit about where you're going with that.
It's interesting. Now we can be a little bit more selective and I've learned so many lessons along the way, but when you're early and you have no distribution, you just like jump for joy with the first yes.
Right.
And sometimes the first yes isn't necessarily going to be a great thing. And so my whole philosophy on this business is I know I'm going to make mistakes. Just don't make mistakes that the company can't come back from. And so we've been really measured on where we go and who we partner with. And we take a lot of risks, but nothing that is going to bankrupt us if it doesn't go our way. And so one of our very, very first retail partners, who's an amazing retailer, they believed in the brand. We had 3 products. They only took one, and it ended up getting completely lost on shelf, and it didn't work. And we will definitely be back to that retailer because we're learning so much more. But I think early on, you just want to take whatever distribution you can get. My advice would be don't necessarily do that unless it's going to set your brand up for success from a space perspective, from a pricing perspective. How does your product look on shelf compared to everything else on there? And so we've built methodically, but I'd say the really interesting thing that I didn't think about, and it's really hard in this job to plan everything. I mean, I come from backgrounds where you've got to plan everything like 18 months in advance, and it's a well-oiled machine. Here, you could have a plan, and then you might deviate from the plan 15 minutes later based on what kind of phone call you get.
Sure.
We've had a tremendous success rate with kind of alternative channels that you'd never really think about building a snack brand. So channels like Tractor Supply and Ace Hardware. Home Depot was actually our first truly national customer. And you think about why it's doing well, why those retail partners have been interested is because they all have shoppers who are deeply engaged in the barbecue community. Ace Hardware, for example, sells more green eggs than any place in the country. They've got over 4,000 locations. And we're not in all of them yet, but we're continuing to grow throughout the network. Tractor Supply. I mean, I bet you 95% of the people that walk through a Tractor Supply have eaten barbecue at some point in like the past 2 weeks before they walk in. And so we're seeing some really good success there and just really want to build the brand, not just where salty snack shoppers are, but where barbecue folks are. So, for us, it was just kind of opportunistic how those things came to be. But I'm really glad that they were some of our first partners because it helped set the stage for positioning us differently against everything else in there.
Yeah. Was that something that you or your team reached out to them, or did they hear about you guys?
They heard about us. Ironically, my first ever trade show was the Sweets and Snacks show in Chicago. And this was in 2022. We didn't even have the plant fully fabricated. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. It was probably early 23. We just hadn't launched in retail yet. And one of the VPs from Ace Hardware came by my small 10 by 10 table and really liked the brand story and the product. And that's how we got going with those guys. And candidly, we've met a lot of really cool people through trade shows. I remember being at that show and I didn't have anybody else full time with the company. It was just me at that point. So I convinced my brother-in-law to take 3 days off and fly with me to Chicago to work the booth. And we're standing there for the first 45 minutes and I'm in this like really tiny section with all new products. It's a huge McCormick Place conference. And I've got this small 10 by 10 table and the Fritos of the world have spent millions and have huge booths and nobody stops by first 45 minutes. And I look at my brother-in-law like, this is going to be the biggest waste of time ever. And I swear 5 minutes after saying that, a guy walked by and he was the national salty snack buyer at Walmart. And he said, I saw your product from across the convention hall and a kind of the new product showcase, and it looked really interesting. And I just wanted to come introduce myself. And we talked for 45 minutes. And then ultimately that led us to get our shot at Walmart in Texas. And so we've just been really fortunate to have some of those chance encounters. Some of it has been through, again, my network and friends. And I think the reason we've had such early success gaining distribution is because we are so unique, but it's not niche innovation. It's really mainstream indulgent innovation. Yeah. And it's in a massive category. And I think most importantly, it's a super simple story to tell. We smoke cheese puffs and that's how we're different. So I think, you sometimes see new brands get tripped up because they might be amazing products, but the stories aren't simple and it takes a lot of explanation. And my advice to people crafting new brands is it brick to forehead simple where you don't have to tell the story. Someone can look at your bag and in 2 seconds understand how you're different.
And they get it. Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up because I was going to ask it about the story and how you communicate that story to, especially to retailers.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally every chance I get to reinforce the fact that we actually burn real wood to smoke our products. I mean, that is the story. So everything we do on social media revolves around smoke and wood and the process. And we've had a lot of fun creating some social content over the past year. And really that's the moral of the story. I mean, that's the functional point of difference. The more emotive point of difference, I think, will come over time. But I've got aspirations to kind of become like the Corona of salty snacks, not by way of being alcoholic, but more when you think about opening a Corona. You could be in New York in February when it's 15 degrees and you open a Corona and you feel like you're in Mexico.
Yeah,
and on
channel
a beach.
that beach.
And that's just the feeling that they've built over time because there's a memory associated with the product. And so when you open a bag of Low and Slow and you get a whiff of that barbecue, if you've got any memories of smoking stuff in the backyard with your family or going to a barbecue joint with friends, we want you to kind of feel that. And ironically, I mean, those are the kinds of notes that I get from consumers. One was, I mean, I just opened a bag and it brought me back to my favorite barbecue joint growing up in Birmingham, Alabama. Like that is nirvana, the best possible email I could ever get from a customer because it's bringing the emotion of barbecue into a functional product benefit, which is just aroma and smell and taste and the whole thing. And you can't get that from seasoning alone. You have to smoke it.
Yeah, no, it brings you back to these moments of your life that are wrapped in memories, right? So, I know you mentioned aspirations, and that's something I wanted to bring up because, you had talked about you have big ideas for more products down the road. So you have your cheese puffs, and tell us a little bit about some of the other things you're potentially thinking.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've got our cheese puffs right now. We had 2 flavors in market this year, a hickory smoked barbecue and a hickory smoked jalapeno. We just launched last week 2 new flavors that are available online and starting to trickle into retail. It's a hickory smoked Texas queso. It's kind of our take on a white cheddar, but it really tastes like you're eating queso from a Tex-Mex place, except smoked.
My husband will love that.
Seeing a lot of smoked desserts pop up at barbecue joints around the country. Cinnamon sugar has been a really popular flavor in the category. So we actually have a slightly smoked cinnamon sugar puff. It's not cheese. It's just a corn-based puff that we apply a really tasty cinnamon sugar rub to and then smoke it. So those are the 4 puff flavors that we're going to roll with for the time being. We also have a hickory smoked barbecue potato chip. And, I think all kinds of different innovation things in my head. The cool part about this platform, and it really is a platform, it's not just a chip, is that there are multiple ways in on innovation. We can use different woods. Right now, we only use hickory, but we've used all different kinds of woods. I mean, cherry and fruit woods are really tasty. Bourbon oak, really tasty. So we can have some fun on the wood front. You can go to substrate, which is just potato chips, corn chips, tortilla chips, that runs the gamut. And so we'll continue to kind of iterate around different substrates. And then obviously there are the rubs. We never call them seasonings because a barbecue joint doesn't season its brisket. It rubs its brisket. And so there's all different kinds of flavor profiles. And again, if I wouldn't smoke it, it's not going to go on one of our products. So we're playing around with all different kinds of flavors. There could be some fun co-branding collabs coming up. You mentioned kind of whiskey and that whole world. There's a huge crossover between the bourbon and barbecue cultures. And so I think it would be really fun to do like a limited edition bourbon oak smoked snack food with a prominent bourbon brand. So those are kind of ideas that we're playing around with, but we don't want to go too crazy too quickly. I think the current lineup of the 5 flavors that we have will give us enough breath to hopefully really do some damage in 26.
Yeah. No, that sounds really exciting. You have so much potential. It's almost you have to kind of rein it in because you could really go so far, especially with the partnerships. As we're talking about that, I'm like, there's so many brands that you could partner with that this would just be amazing for. But you have to also kind of control what you're putting out there. So you also brought up a good point though about you have the product line now. What do you think is the right rollout of new flavors to really kind of maintain the brand? But
yeah, I mean, and we every CPG company goes through this. I mean, how do you create news to keep things exciting? I mean, I think the good part about where we are in our journey and not having to rely on super frequent innovation launches is just because we're still building awareness. And so if you look at kind of how companies manage innovation, and not just in and out innovation, but like permanent innovation, you've got your top 3, 4 flavors, and then there's kind of the long tail that can really trip you up. And maybe someone tries it once and that's it. But it's definitely not going to necessarily be something that people put in their routine every day.
Right.
And so I really want to simplify ops. I mean, it's hard enough as it is operationally, being such a new company, to introduce new flavors, and you've got line time changeovers and sanitary stuff that you got to deal with, and all the things that happen at the plant level when you need to go from flavor to flavor. So I really don't want to make it too complicated. But I think what we'll probably end up doing is, we architected our current portfolio to kind of run the gamut of mainstream flavors. So you've got cheese, which is really the number one flavor profile in salty snacks. You've got hot, which is our jalapeno, and that's the number 2 flavor profile in snacks. You've got barbecue, which is the number 3 flavor profile in snacks. And then you've got kind of like a sweet. And I don't envision us going too far outside of that really anytime soon. I'd probably rather do something with wood type. You're seeing a lot of dill pickle pop up, and we get all kinds of different requests coming in, and they're all good ideas, but you can't do all of them. And at the end of the day, I don't know how much staying power some of those trendy flavors have.
Yeah. Right.
So I could see us doing some online only flavor innovation just to have some fun and drive some heat on TikTok and all the things that we're doing around building our TikTok shop presence, which is pretty powerful. But trying to get shelf space for your 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th flavor probably doesn't make a ton of sense for us anytime soon.
Right. Yeah, it's like you said, a huge operational burden to keep adding more flavors. And if it's going to move the needle in terms of your revenue, it's hard when you have your base flavors that are successful. So you mentioned your TikTok and you had mentioned social earlier. Talk to us a little bit about your marketing and how you've gone about introducing the product to the market, and how are you building awareness?
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know how brands built brand awareness without social media. Yeah. It's just insane to think about. But for us, it was really kind of eye-opening. And there was like a seminal moment in my journey. I mean, I did not create a ton of content my first year plus. And the content I did create was pretty boring. I mean, I am not a social media expert. And then we had a video with one of our investors is a pretty big social media influencer. And he took a bag of our cheese puffs to a viral food truck in Virginia. And it got over 160 million views across YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. And I'll never forget, at that point in our journey, we only had like 2,000 followers.
Yeah.
And so we're at dinner, and him and the owners of the food truck are looking at my social media on Instagram, and they just start laughing. And I'm like, what's so funny? And they're like, dude, no offense, but you're going about this the wrong way. You're overthinking it. You're the founder of a company. Shark Tank is successful because people love following the journeys of small businesses and entrepreneurs. Just start putting yourself out there and start recording stuff. And don't worry if it's good or not. People will be interested. And so, I mean, I couldn't sleep that night thinking about all the things that we could go do. Right. And it just forced me to get like really creative again. And that's what I miss. I think you start a company and you get so bogged down in operations and sales and finance. And sometimes you forget about the fact, at least as a brand marketer, that, I used to be creative at one point. And so had all these ideas and ended up going back and having the idea with a friend to create content, one piece of content a day to try to get Snoop Dogg to collaborate with Low and Slow. And that's kind of like how my social media started to kick off. And the thought was, Snoop smokes stuff, we smoke stuff. It's like a match made in heaven. And so that kind of took on a life of its own. And, we've built our following. It's still modest, but from like 2,000 to 20,000 across our platforms in the last like 4 or 5 months. And really, it's just all about creating fun content that shares a founder story, much to the angst of my wife and family, who I embarrass incredibly. Like, I've become the face of the brand as the founder. Yeah. My rule of thumb is the more embarrassed they are, the more likelihood of it getting more
Of
views.
successful it might be. Yeah.
My barometer. But I mean, I think, the lesson for me was don't overthink it. You've got this incredible TV channel. Just start posting content. I mean, I love the story from the founder of Poppy who said she just put herself on TikTok one day and she went to bed and she woke up and she had sold like $100,000 worth of product on Amazon overnight. And so that's what I'm doing. That's a big piece of our marketing strategy is that. We have started to do some stuff in store. I mean, we just launched our first rotation at Sam's Club. So we've done a handful of demos. We've got a really big launch coming up at Costco in the Northeast. So right in your backyard coming up in March. And so we'll do some in-store stuff there. So the retail marketing investments from a marketing perspective are definitely the closest to purchase you can get. And then we've done some really strategic kind of regional meta and social media campaigns. And then TikTok Shop has been unbelievable for us. We just turned that on a few months ago, and that could be a massive business for us this year. And it's all through affiliates. And I think the more and more I read about people building brand awareness through TikTok Shop and how it's influencing traditional retail sales, the more excited I get about what I'm seeing from that channel. So those are just kind of a handful of the things that we're going to be focused on from a marketing perspective moving forward.
Yeah. Yes, I love hearing that. I think the message there for everybody to make sure that they take away from that is just do it and experiment and tap into that creative side again, because I totally agree with you. We get so bogged down with all the what needs to happen with the business to make the wheels keep moving. It's really, especially in our space here in the CPG world, you have to tap into the culture of it and the community of it that is all found on social.
Yep, no doubt. The issue is that it's a very deep rabbit hole. I mean, I think it could take up 23 hours of my day if I let it. So the trick is, how do you create as much content as you can while still running a business? One day we'll have a whole community of content creators to build narratives online for us. But for now, it's just a major balancing act, trying to figure out how to create as much fun stuff as you can while still running the business.
Have you heard of this app called Whatnot? No, so I just learned of this app, and it's so sellers can go on there and you can do it like, like, oh, I'm going to go on at like 11 a.m. or you can just go live at any time. But it kind of reminds me of like the old, shopping channel, things where they're going to do like a product demonstration. But there's a lot of food companies that are now experimenting with this, and you can live purchase. So it's kind of like taking the TikTok Shop to just concentrating that in this one area. So I just downloaded the app.
Why not?
Whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just downloaded it, so I'm gonna check it out some more. But as you're talking about the TikTok shops, I'm like, oh yeah, it's just the way that people are learning about products and the way that they are shopping. It continues to evolve so quickly, and we always have to stay on top of it.
Yeah, no doubt. I have not done my first live yet. That's coming. But that'll be another one where I think you just kind of turn the camera on and see what happens. So yes, I will definitely check out that app too.
Excellent. So as we're getting to the end of our time, but we always ask our guests, and I want to hear, you've given us so much good insight into what it's taken to launch your business, but what do you think has been your recipe to revenue for Low and Slow?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to a couple things. I touched upon the simplicity of the story. I really do credit a lot of our early distribution wins to the fact that it's a super unique item in a mainstream category with a very, very simple story. So buyers get it immediately. So that's number one. And then I think number two is, you see a lot of emerging brands do this, friendly with the guys who started the tomato sauce company Saws. And I've been it's so cool to kind of watch their journey. They took a sleepy tomato sauce category and made it young and cool and hip. So this kind of trend of taking sleepy categories that haven't seen innovation for a while and doing something fun, I think has been a key recipe to revenue for us. I mean, Cheese Puffs, there hasn't been meaningful platform innovation in Cheese Puffs maybe since like Utz started putting them in the balls in those big jars. Even
Right.
that was like form and packaging innovation. It wasn't real product innovation. It's all been flavors. And so we've got this really cool new platform in a category that hasn't been innovated in for a really long time is number two. And then number three is the product. I mean, I think Randy tells this story. He said when he would sample dots early on, it was like 50-50 people who liked it and didn't like it. And when I sent him his first box of Low and Slow early on, he said it was like 99.9% to 0.1% people who liked it and didn't. He had never seen that kind of widespread acceptance of a new product. And we're seeing that play out. It's not for everybody. You definitely have to like kind of barbecue. And just like Dot has a lot of flavor on their pretzels, we put a lot of flavor on our cheese puffs. So you got to like flavor. So it's certainly not for everybody, but the lion's share of people that try it really enjoy it. And so having a great product, obviously, is the core of long-term success. You can get anyone to try something once, but the real challenge is getting them to buy it again. And so that's where you have to lean on the product way more than the marketing. So we think we've got a real shot. We've got a ton of work to do, and we're not yelling success yet, but we think we're on the right track and have a real opportunity to shake up the salty snack aisle.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, I love what you're doing with it. You mentioned a couple places that people can get it. So just give us the rundown. Where can they find Low and Slow?
Yeah. So the store locator is pretty up to date on our website, www.lowandslow.com. We're available at most Walmarts in Texas, a lot of regional grocery stores, Home Depot nationally, Home Goods nationally, soon to be TJX. You can find us at Sam's in Texas, Costco in the Northeast coming this March. And then we're always available online, either TikTok shop or on our website. So hopefully coming to a retail location near you.
Awesome. Jared, well done so far. We're excited to continue following your success, and we will definitely include some of those links down below so people can click and check out your website and find you nearby.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course, anytime. Thanks, Jared. Have a good day.
You too.